So doing a bit more work on the JMC E-11, I've just had Mark send through a metal D-ring for this one, which is handy. This is the end cap that goes on the back of the barrel, essentially holding the spring on. Just to show you on the back of here, on the back of the barrel. And this comes as separate parts. So this part here, for example, you can see underneath actually gives you a good idea of what it looked like when it started, just the standard sort of resin colour. This part here, I think I might have a photo. If I have, I'll have put it on screen by now. And this did not have a groove on the back. So it basically had either end, try and turn it around, it had a little hole, which you could then, I drilled mine out a little bit more previously, but there was a bit of a hole there. And I find to get the D-ring in, the best bet is to actually sort of put this groove in it. So I put the groove all the way through. The D-ring here is just metal, it's blooming solid. I've just reshaped it a bit. It was a little bit off on one side, basically had a larger radius on one end than the other. So what I've done is you can basically now put this in there. So I guess that's roughly how the originals worked. I'm not 100% sure, as I do not have one, but that's essentially it. So then that can go in there, which will then give me a sort of functioning D-ring. If you want to stop it flapping about, you could. What I did with my previous blaster to stop it moving too much was to actually wrap a bit of masking tape around the inside of the D-ring here, which then sort of makes it a bit stiffer, I suppose you would say, because at the moment it's, you know, it's loose, you can see. But again, I don't have an original, so I don't know whether they just sort of hang low. I'm going to be spray painting this anyway, of course, because it's got, this is the Hammerite metal paint, hammered black, which is then too shiny in my opinion. It's got that sort of texture to it a little bit. It's got a bit of texture in there, which makes it look maybe a bit nicer, but it's too metallic. So I'm going to be spraying it with a bit of matte black anyway, which is what I've done with the rest of the blaster. So anyway, that's the end cap, putting the D-ring in, and I'll do a few more bits in a moment. Back again, so I did what I said. It was too floppy, basically. It was just wiggling around everywhere, so I have used a bit of electrical tape, because it's what I had next to me. Doesn't really matter, and that's essentially sort of wrapped around once, 1.5 times. So it's just adding that little bit of material just from standard electrical tape. I don't know where the roll's gone, so I can't show you. But yes, electrical tape, a bit like this. There you go, just wrapped a little bit of that around it, very, very thin. And that will now stop it from flippity flopping everywhere. So that's it, that's that part, and I'll do some more updates in a sec. Just to quickly highlight on this as well, I don't think I showed a video of this, but I did show photos in a previous post. But basically, again, the back of this end cap did not have a dip. So you could just glue this part with the D-ring, you could glue that straight onto the surface. But the originals, it looks like, again, I don't have one, so I know there's many more knowledgeable people out there. I used a Dremel and very carefully went round it. You can see it's not perfectly flat in there, but I went round and created this sort of inner dip, this sort of disc section inside, which then allows the D-ring, when you put this back part on, that actually sits in, if I can get that in there, I've got my hand in the way, that sits in a lot nicer now. So it actually sits in, if I was to push that a little bit more, which I can't do with one hand, but it does then sit much more flush. And to me, from the photos I've seen, it does look a lot more realistic. So to say, that's sort of cutting a disc out in the middle, a dip or a recess, and then putting the D-ring part, the D-ring holder, the bit that you see on screen, straight into that little hole. Well, look at these beasts. So left hand side is the JMC, on the right is my old doopy-doos kit, and well, let's just have a quick look anyway. But the T-tracks being separate, if you compare the two blasters there, the fact that you can actually see the sort of barrel holes underneath just makes it so much more realistic. That's a really, really good start to it. As most of you know as well, so the doopy-doos is a fixed stock, so there's no moving parts on there. I did actually replace all of these with metal parts, made it look as separated as possible on this, so it does look like separate parts a bit more compared to what it came as. But of course, the good old JMC is separate parts, as we know, and as I've got mine, so it appears to function, although it doesn't really, and that just has the magnets holding it back to the barrel So I'll do a slightly nicer video of this when I've got my hands available. But yeah, so it's coming on. It's not finished. The grip is attached, but there's currently no screw in where it would say free and lock. The bolt inside is not actually affixed yet, so it's just in there, but it's not actually sorted out. It's not finished. I've just done the D-ring today, which I've got a video for coming up, and that's just had a fresh coat of matte black. So you will see, if I zoom in, see how close the iPhone can get, there is still some texture under there, but it will get sanded back a bit. And same with the barrel here, you can see the texture in the paint, but it's not sort of out and out. This was Hammerite hammered black, and it's nowhere near as textured as the paint that Mark's got. So again, it depends really whether you're going for somewhere in between, which I'd say is like this one. There is still quite a bit of texture. It's on the stock as well. The stock has that texture, if I can get the lighting right. Yeah, you can just see it there. So again, if I get the lighting, you can see that texture in there. Bit of mild weathering here and there. So the stock's got a little bit of weathering where it would probably get weathered. Areas in here on the trigger, again, light weathering just to make it look like it's metallic underneath. Areas like this where the cocking screw, cocking handle would be, that again has got a little bit of extra weathering in there, just a tiny bit, where, you know, in real life that would have been pulled. The scope as well has got that little bit of weathering to it. But as I say, I love it. It's really, really, really nice. Lots of bits. I haven't fixed the screen in the back of the Henxler counter yet either. The magazine, I saw there's somebody posted the other day about this, I can't remember. On the originals, I believe, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but this part on the top of the magazine, this little bit that pops out, a lot of people use an LED for that. I actually use the end of a rivet. On the originals, that would have pushed down. It was spring loaded. You'd push it down to remove this part. So you'd push that down to allow this top part to move away. When you pushed it back on and clicked it in, of course, this little part popped up to hold this end part in place. So that there, I've weathered it slightly to be sort of look like it's metallic. But again, yeah, great blaster. Really good to see so many builds on the group. And yeah, just coming on nicely. So this is the charging handle, or cocking handle if it was a real gun. So this is going onto the bolt, and the original ones, I believe there was a much larger hole in here, and then the charging handle or cocking handle just poked straight in. But of course this is made of resin, it's got nothing on the back end of it, it's kind of hollow. And this, I did try gluing it on, and then of course, well, without the metal pin, and it just came off because I put it down and forgot, and it came off. So what I've done now is I've drilled a small hole into the bolt inside there, and this again, the ever popular standard rivet. It's just a bog standard rivet, just without the end on it. So again, I've cut that down. I've drilled a small hole into the charging handle. I've drilled a hole into the receiver, the bolt, and now of course, if it does get knocked, it's not actually going to go that far. It's got more support inside. So that's just my way then of doing that. So I will now super glue it, and hopefully that'll give it a bit more strength. But as I say, that's going to hopefully be a lot better. Even if it does get knocked, it will probably just come loose, but at least it's easily fixable. So there we go, that is that. The Henxler counter is, I'm not going to lie, I haven't spent ages trying to perfect that plastic screen. So it's not 100%, but it's not bad. I haven't added either as well the reset, purely because it's very, very close to the screen or the display. So I didn't want to damage it. So I've left off that, the sort of reset button on the bottom there, the counter button. Also as well, I'm just going to leave that open. I don't have the right size screw for it. I might find one later, but it's not too shabby. I've just gone again and actually adjusted my scope rail. So you can see in here, there are actually 2 extra holes, which I will either fill or just paint black so that they don't stand out. Nobody's going to ever see that. But basically my scope was too far back. This is an old scope rail. This is kit 1. This is the JMC kit 1. So it didn't come with the metal scope rail. So this is my old scope rail, and just purely because of the difference in the blasters, the scope was too far back. So according to quite a bit of reference material, the rear foot of the M38 tank scope is usually roughly in line with the what would be coach bolts on here for the folding stock. You'll see from where those holes were before, this would have been then further back, which I didn't like. You can actually see there as well, by the way, when you catch the light, the subtle texture to the barrel and to quite a few parts. This has been a conversation that's been going on for a bit now on how textured the blasters were, should be, and this for me is sort of a happy medium, so it's coming out reasonable. Anyway, that's that for now. More updates to come soon.